My doctor has diagnosed me with something that she calls white coat syndrome. Now, maybe some of you have that. All I have to do is just walk in the door of her office and my blood pressure goes up. Now, she is a smart lady. She doesn't really think I have high blood pressure. So she has me go to the drugstore every month, once a month, and take it there and keep a log and take it in to show her when I go. And usually it's in sort of the low end of the normal range. One time it was actually so low that I went to another store and checked it again just to be sure there wasn't something wrong with the machine. I know that it's caused by anxiety. I know that it's going to happen. And before I go to her office, I talk to myself. I tell myself to relax. I take deep breaths. It doesn't do any good. That anxiety is buried very deeply. And I may be able to convince my conscious mind that I'm not anxious, but I can't fool my body. So let me ask you, how is your anxiety these days? We are living in anxious times, perhaps more so than many of us have ever experienced. Our daughter lives in California, and every time I hear news of a new wildfire, my stomach is in a knot until we hear from them. I know that most of you may have family and friends who live in the paths of hurricanes or floods or other natural disasters that cause you worry. We have grandchildren. Many of you have children in school. Every time there's news of a school shooting, we stop short. And those visits to the doctor that used to just be routine, well, they're not so routine anymore. I always find myself wondering, oh boy, I wonder if she's going to find something of concern this year. We have anxieties about our personal lives, about our homes, our health, our families. But I also think that our national political environment is adding to our anxieties. The institutions that we have always trusted seem to be on some shaky ground, sort of like those stones in the temple that Jesus predicts are going to be thrown down. We worry about things like fair elections. We're not sure if we really trust the police or our government officials. We wonder what climate change is going to bring. And then there's the church. We struggle with declining membership, with scandals, and with a lack of relevance for many. The stock market is erratic. The stores where we've always shopped are out of business. What did we read? Wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines. Reading the gospel lessons sounds like listening to the evening news. And the media seems programmed to heighten our alert and hold us captive. I remember the day when that term breaking news was actually pretty rare, and you only heard it if there was something really momentous. Well, now it's 24/7, And yet, it still has the power to make me wonder and anticipate that there's some kind of disaster. So, how is your anxiety these days? And what do you do about it? We have all kinds of defenses against anxiety. Probably our first is just like the disciples. We want to know, when is it going to happen so we can be prepared? Fear of the unknown can be worse than experiencing the actual event itself. And we bolster our defenses. Nationally, we build up the military, we secure our borders. Personally, we buy home security systems or guns to protect ourselves. Or we try to escape and avoid it. We turn off the news. We don't want to get involved. We medicate or anesthetize, or a new word I learned this week, narcotize ourselves with alcohol and drugs and food and shopping sprees. Or we might be ones who take action. We plan, we organize, we join causes, we go out and protest. And we look for messiahs. Like our scripture lesson said today, there are plenty out there who claim to have the solution for us. There are politicians, there are investment strategists, there are life coaches, personal trainers, there are therapists, there's technology, there are diets and supplements, all claiming to protect us from what we most fear. But all of those messiahs and all of our defenses and all of our preparedness ultimately can't protect us. The truth is that suffering and hardship and tragedy and death are going to be part of life sooner or later for all of us. Our hope, our comfort, our salvation is trust in God's goodness and God's love for us. It is in the conviction that there is nothing stronger than that love. That there is nothing that can ever separate us from the love of a God who knows and counts and treasures every hair on our head, every tear that we shed. God does not promise to insulate us from suffering. Rather, God comes to us in that suffering. God shares it. God carries it. God walks with us. And God promises that suffering is not meaningless. It is the indescribable mystery of God's mercy and God's grace that God can bring blessing out of suffering. That God can bring new birth out of pain and loss. That is the experience of people of faith, again and again, and has been over the centuries. There is a Presbyterian author, some of you may know. Her name is Kathleen Norris. I think she is best known for one of her first books, Dakota, A Spiritual Geography, it's called. She tells this story. An acquaintance of mine, a brilliant young woman scholar, was stricken with cancer, and over the course of several years came close to dying 3 times. After extensive and difficult treatment, surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, came a welcome remission. Her prognosis was still uncertain at best, but she was again able to teach and to write. She told her department head, an older woman, "I'd never want to go back because now I know what each morning means, and I am so grateful just to be alive." The other woman said to her, "But you've been through so much in the last few years." And the younger woman looked at her and nodded and smiled and said, "Yes, and hasn't it been a blessing?" We can face our anxieties, and we can dig down and expose our deepest fears with courage. And we can face the crumbling of what we've always depended on, our families, ourselves, our jobs, and our health, our homes. We can face cancer and divorce and hurricanes and shootings and betrayals and come through them to a place of blessing. And we can trust that the very worst can birth the best, because that is what God has shown us in the life and death and resurrection of Jesus. When our world is falling apart, we put our trust in the love of God that is steadfast and unshakable. God who holds us in the palm of his hand and who is birthing for us a future beyond our imagining. With thanksgiving, thanks be to God. Amen.